All right. So today we're diving into a possible global trade war
Oh, wow.
sparked by new U.S. tariffs. And get this, these tariffs, they're not some far-off threat. They
Wow.
kick in tomorrow. We're talking Canada, Mexico, China, all in the mix. And to break it all down,
What?
we've got a recent BBC article that really dissects these tariffs and the world's reaction.
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know what's going on, why it matters, and how it could hit you right where it counts your wallet.
It's amazing, isn't it, how these tariffs are sending shockwaves across the globe. And the speed.
Yeah.
Everything's happening so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. The BBC article, it lays it all out. Trump's announcement, a 25% tariff, that's a big one, on goods coming in from Canada and Mexico,
Wow.
then 10% on Chinese imports.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add fuel to the fire, there's a 10% tariff just for Canadian energy.
Interesting. What's noteworthy here is that he's justifying these tariffs using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act,
Oh, great.
IEPA.
ITA, right?
Yeah, which gives the president, broad authority to regulate commerce when there's a national emergency.
So invoking IEPA, that's framing this whole thing as a national security issue.
Exactly.
He's citing illegal immigration,
Mm-hmm.
drug trafficking, specifically fentanyl, as the reasons behind these tariffs.
Right.
He's basically saying this is an emergency, gotta act now.
Right. And just to clarify, a tariff is essentially a tax on goods entering a country.
Okay.
So what we might see is prices shooting up on everyday things, cars, lumber, even that bottle of wine you enjoy.
Hold up, more expensive wine. Now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
But seriously, the potential fallout here is huge. The reaction from Canada, Mexico, China, SWIFT, they've all promised to retaliate, tariffs of their own.
That's right. A classic tit-for-tat response, which is, the recipe for a trade war.
Yeah.
A back and forth that hurts everyone involved.
Okay, so let's break down each country's response, starting with Canada's ship. Trudeau didn't mince words, hitting back with $155 billion worth of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods.
And what's interesting is that Canada seems to be targeting goods that come from, key Republican states.
Ooh, strategic.
Like American bourbon, fruits and veggies from California, even furniture from North Carolina, all slapped with a 25% tariff.
So playing hardball, using this as leverage, huh? I wonder how that'll shake things up.
It's a calculated move, that's for sure.
Mhm.
It shows how intertwined economics and politics really are.
For sure. And Trudeau, he directly challenged Trump's fentanyl claims, pointed out that less than 1% of fentanyl entering the U.S. actually comes from Canada.
Right, which underscores the complexities here.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is a serious issue, no doubt.
Yeah.
But using it as the sole justification for these sweeping tariffs raises questions, about the true motivations behind this whole move.
And so next up, Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum, she called Trump's accusations slander, straight up.
Wow.
Instead of tariffs, she's urging the U.S. to address the flow of guns going south to cartels. She said, problems are not resolved by imposing tariffs, but by talking a pretty clear message to Trump. She's all about dialogue and cooperation.
A different approach, for sure.
And finally, China, their response. Strong dissatisfaction. They're opposing the levies and planning to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization, the WTO.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because WTO disputes, they can drag on for years.
Oh, wow.
And they can set major precedents for how future trade conflicts are handled.
So, not just a quick spat, this could have ripple effects on the global stage for years to come.
Exactly. And that Chinese statement, trade and tariff wars have no winners.
Right.
That's a crucial point. You might see short-term gains, but ultimately everyone ends up paying the price.
Okay, so we've set the stage. Tariffs are in play, reactions are heated. Now, the big question, what are the potential consequences of all this? What does it mean for, everyday people like us? And that's where your expertise really comes in.
Well, to really grasp the impact, we have to understand just how interconnected the U.S., Canada, and Mexico's economies truly are. We're talking about $2 billion worth of goods crossing those borders every single day. It's a tightly woven web and, disrupting that flow. Serious consequences.
Here, so paint a picture for me. What happens if this trade war, it really heats up?
Imagine a car, right?
Yeah.
It might be assembled in the U.S., but the parts, they could come from Mexico, Canada, even further afield. Each part crossing a border. Boom, hit with a tariff. And the BBC article, it highlights how this could impact the auto sector. Analysts are predicting car prices in the U.S. could jump by, get this, $3,000 on average.
$3,000, oof, that's a hit, I'd feel. But it's sounds like it's not just cars we're talking about.
Exactly, no.
Yeah.
The BBC article, it cites concerns from organizations like the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the National Home Builders Association, Farmers for Free Trade, even the U.S. Retail Industry Leaders Association.
Yeah.
They're all worried about price increases and disruptions across all sorts of industries.
So this could really impact, like, the cost of living for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember, these tariffs, they're not just about economics, they're a tool. Political leverage.
Right, right. And speaking of political leverage, you mentioned earlier that Trump might be using these tariffs to get what he wants on immigration,
Yeah.
almost like a bargaining chip.
Yeah, exactly. And the BBC article, they quotes Ashley Davis, a lobbyist representing major U.S. companies. She believes Trump might ease up on the tariffs, on Canada and Mexico, if he sees some progress on immigration, which is a key issue for his base.
So it's like a high-stakes poker game using tariffs to force concessions on a completely different issue.
It's a complex situation, for sure. Lots of moving parts. Domestic politics, international relations, economic considerations, it's all tangled up together.
Speaking of complex, let's circle back to fentanyl for a second. The article mentions seizures at both the U.S.-Mexico and U.S.-Canada borders. Can you break down those details a bit more?
Sure. So while seizures have happened at both borders, the amounts? Drastically different. U.S. border agents have seized way more fentanyl at the U.S.-Mexico border compared to the U.S.-Canada border.
So even though Trudeau argues that very little fentanyl entering the U.S. comes from Canada, there's still activity at that border.
Right, and it's interesting because while the seizures up north are smaller, Canadian intelligence reports, they actually point to a rising trend of drug manufacturing within Canada by organized crime.
So there's more to the story than meets the eye, huh?
Exactly. The flow across the U.S.-Canada border might be smaller, but the dynamics within Canada, they're changing, and that could have implications down the road. It's something to watch, definitely.
This whole thing, it feels incredibly volatile. This trade war, the political maneuvering, the drug trade, it's a lot to process. So what does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We're in uncharted territory here. If these tariffs stay in place and the retaliation continues, we could see a major reshaping of global trade consequences that reach far beyond just, the price of goods.
So it's not just about my wallet getting lighter.
No, it's much bigger than that. This situation, it could reshape global alliances, impact international agreements, even influence domestic politics for years to come.
So this trade war, it's not just some, textbook economic theory.
Right.
It could really change the whole global landscape.
Absolutely. We're talking about a potential shift in the balance of power, maybe even new alliances forming. And think about it, how international agreements are negotiated in the future. That could change too.
What's really striking me is how much domestic politics are shaping these global events.
Yeah.
It shows how connected everything is, right? It's not just about economics or trade. It's about, like, power, strategy, national interests, all mixed up together.
And it really highlights how tough global cooperation can be, especially when countries are, becoming more inward-looking.
We've covered a lot today. Trump's tariff announcement, the reactions from Canada, Mexico, China, and all the potential fallout, economic and political.
It's important to remember, though, that this is all still developing.
Right.
How these countries decide to handle these trade tensions.
Yeah.
It's going to have a ripple effect across the whole global economy.
Yeah.
So will we see things escalate, or will they, try to find some common ground? That's the question.
It's a lot to think about. For you, what really sticks out from all of this? What are your thoughts on how this might all play out?
Well, for me, it's a pretty stark reminder that we're all connected. What one country does can really impact others, and it really emphasizes the need for diplomacy, for understanding that global challenges need global solutions.
You've hit it right on the head. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this, but this deep dive, it's really helped me grasp the key issues and what's at stake here.
And that's what matters, right? Staying informed, having these conversations, considering different points of view. These issues are complicated. There's no easy answers. But the more we understand what's going on, the better equipped we are to, contribute to a more informed and nuanced public discussion.
This has been really insightful. I appreciate you walking us through this complex topic.
Oh, sure.
And to everyone listening, keep those questions coming, keep digging deeper, and stay curious. Until next time.